Good morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told, out of Voice of Radio. So today I'm here with my usual warning. Stop buying Surging Sparks singles. Also, as a side note, I love that this set allows me to do the alliteration thing. But we're at the stage now where pre-releases have happened. We have had pre-releases for Surging Sparks, and, or at least the first weekend. We're not actually finished yet. We've got another weekend coming up. But we've had the first weekend of Surging Sparks, and the set isn't actually out yet. It's going to be out fairly soon. It's going to be out a week on Friday, on the 8th of November. Also, as a side note, spare a thought for your old pal Wassy, because on the 8th of November, Surging Sparks comes out. But over on my other channel, Wassy Plays, I cover a bunch of games like One Piece, for instance. Premium Booster 01 is out next Friday. And Star Wars Unlimited, Twilight of the Republic, is out next Friday. Universes, the new Attack on Titan set, is out next Friday. November the 8th is a ridiculously busy day. It is also the day where Surging Sparks singles are going to start dropping down in price. But for right now, I am still, like every single set, I am still seeing way too many people spending way too much money on these singles, and this is something we need to have a chat about. Let's look at some of the ridiculous prices that people are paying, and then let's also try and make some sensible predictions as to where these cards are going to end up in the long run. So let's go and take, for argument's sake, our old friend Pikachu. We know Pikachu is going to be a big deal. It was a big deal. The Japanese version of the card was a very big deal. The English version will similarly be a very big deal. So surely right now this is a nice, sensibly priced card. No, it's not. If you just search it on eBay, the first couple of buy it nows we see, $350, $400, $500. Nah, mate, that's absurd. That's ridiculous. Maybe we go look at some sold listings, because that is, we'll talk more about numbers in a second, but that is absurd. $350, $400, $500? Yeah, here are the first free solds. Well, the last free solds, I should say. The most recent free. $355. Best offer accepted on $450. $480? What are you doing? $480 as a pre-sale? No! Come on! This card, of all the cards I've come out and told you not to buy during the pre-release window, this is the card I am most telling you not to buy during the pre-sale window. I mean, when it comes to this Pikachu, right, we really do need to go and have a look at the other big cards in the game right now to show you why this is an absolutely absurd amount of money. So, in Twilight Masquerade, we got ourselves that Greninja EX, which is way too high, and I've said it before and I'll say it again. Way too high, does not need to be this high. Greninja's not that popular, the card's not that good, the artwork's amazing, but it's not that great, etc., okay? It's currently a $320 card, which again is way too high for this Greninja. But it's gotten to the point now where, like, the hype is fueling itself, so it's weird. It shouldn't be this high, but it is this high, and it's not coming down anytime soon, because now the hype has kind of started, and the hype will fuel the rise. Even though it never should have been this high, it's a bit too late now. Never mind. It's expensive proportionally over in Japan, put it that way. But you'll notice that, on release, it was like a $120 card. Now, it's a card that should have then come down to like $60 and ended up going up to $320, which is weird, but on release it came down to $120. So we can't compare Pikachu to Greninja, because Greninja started off moderately sensible and then went ridiculous. Okay. How about the other big one from the Scarlet and Violet era? How about the Charizard from Scarlet and Violet 151? This is a Charizard which is a very important point because Charizard always attracts more value than other Pokemon out there. The fact that it's a Charizard means it's going to be inflated. Yeah, it's $185 right now. It's a $185 card, which is still huge for a Scarlet and Violet Special Illustration Rare. It is incredibly high. But it's $185. And again, and I do think this is incredibly important to stress, didn't start there. It actually got as low as like $100 back in April and then jumped up recently. You know, back in mid-September, like 6-7 weeks ago, it was like a $120 card. So this one jumped up ridiculously. Let's take Moonbreon. Umbreon VMAX. The biggest card we have had in years. Now, right now, that is apparently like it's gone up to like a $1,000 card. Okay. Well, that's old. That's very old. Here's a graph from TCG Player that I saved on my computer back in July 2022, showing the pre-sale price being ridiculous, it dropping down to like 170 and then creeping up. Moonbreon was like 170 shortly after release, and it then did jump up again afterwards. We don't have any cards around right now that have been like $400-$500 cards on release. That doesn't happen. Now, I suppose it could happen. This could jump up to $1,000 straight away. But all the evidence we've got, and I've just shown you like really the big free cards from the past few years in terms of, you know, these special Pokemon. All the evidence we've got tells us this ain't happening. All the evidence we've got tells us that actually this is a card which is not going to settle this high, is going to come down. And look, I cannot, and I could be wrong, I cannot see the future. All I can do is show you what's happened in the past and tell you what is overwhelmingly likely to happen. There could always be weird exceptions. But what's probably going to happen is this going to come down a bit. And maybe it'll go up in the future. Maybe it will be a $1,000 card in the future, but not next week. There's no way, even if I really wanted this, there's no way I'm buying this at $400. And even if you're going to pay $400, I'm sure that there will be times in the future you can pay $400. This Pikachu is dumb right now. It is absurd the amount of money people are paying for this. We have not seen this from any recent card, and I just don't think this is a realistic price. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it jumps up ridiculously. There is a chance that happens. But I'm not buying it personally. That seems dumb. What was the other big card over in Japan from this set? Well, that would be Lisia's Appeal. Is that going as dumb as Pikachu? No, not as dumb as Pikachu. Still too expensive, but not as dumb as Pikachu. Somebody for some reason paid $385 for this, which seems weird to me. Someone else paid $172. That also seems very weird to me. Although, and I do say this quite a lot, there is an exception here, and that is if you want to overpay to buy the first copy of a card so that you can be the first person to grade it, then I do kind of understand that. And also, if you really want to overpay on these cards, that's fine. This is friendly advice on your old pal Wassy. I'm just telling you you're overpaying. If you're happy overpaying, that's absolutely fine. More recently, I'll be honest with you, it's not gotten that much better. 110. Best offer accepted on 200, best offer accepted on 175. And I'm going to tell you what I always tell you of supporters like this. Supporters don't stay this high. I mean, Lisia's Appeal is fine, but it's not like it's a hugely playable card that's going to be wrecking the metagame anytime soon. I hate to break it to you, but it's not going to be. And I'm just going to use the same example I always use here, which is Iono. Because Iono is a very popular character and an incredibly playable card. And to be fair, that did get up to like $90. But it is currently sitting like a $55 card. And this is a special illustration rare of an obscenely playable card of an incredibly popular character. And it's sitting there as a $55 card at this point. So I'm not really sure why we think that Lisia's Appeal is all of a sudden randomly going to end up much higher than this. Yes, it is very high in Japan, but these supporter cards tend to be a bit higher in Japan So I'm not sure that's even really necessarily an answer here. I don't expect this to go up. And we see this all the time, you know. Let's go and look at a couple of examples that I showed you from Stellar Crown. When Stellar Crown was in the kind of pre-release period like we are here, I showed you this lovely image of Lisia that was generally selling for like $50. And on the one hand, you can look at that and go, hang on a second, $50 for Lisia? Seems like a little bit of a bargain, does it not? Yeah, here's a couple souls for like $25. It's like half the price. Obviously, it's like half the price. Lisia was never going to end up that high. So, yeah, obviously that happened. It was always going to happen. I told you all it was going to happen. Obviously, it did happen. Terrapagos was selling for like $140 initially. Over on eBay, people were paying $140 for that. And it's still a cool card. It's still very sought after. But nowadays, I mean, you can easily pick it up for under $100. Weirdly, this one's still holding a little bit of value. Don't get me wrong, it's still holding a little bit of value, but it's pretty readily available on eBay. Like, if you shouldn't be paying more than $100 for this. It's not coming down as fast as some other cards, because there's still a lot of hype with Terrapagos, and this is like the big card in the set, but we're still talking like a drop of a third here, and I do expect this to keep going in the future. Shockingly enough, it came down. And we know at this stage, like I told you with Greninja, every so often there'll be one or two cards in a set that just randomly jump up in price in a way that doesn't make any sense, doesn't follow what we saw in Japan, and couldn't really have been predicted. People did not predict this was going to happen with Greninja. Because if they did, there'd be a lot more people sitting on it being like, I told you so, people not be quiet about it. Maybe that's going to happen with some of these cards. We don't know. It always could happen. But the point I'm making here is that these cards inevitably just end up coming down. Even the big cards that end up being really expensive in the long run have those periods where they're a lot cheaper. And what we're seeing at the moment, especially with this Pikachu, and I cannot stress enough how much I'm looking at the $400 sales and just being like, no. But even with this, like, we're rushing to the end. We're paying the it might get up there at some point price at the beginning. And if enough people do this, and that will actually become the price, that is always a danger. Enough people try and rush to the it's going to get their price, so it actually gets there quickly. But put it this way, the Japanese version of this Pikachu is currently sitting at about 22,000 yen, which is coming in at about $144. That's not cheap. I ain't saying it's cheap, but I absolutely am saying that in what world is, you know, the big card in Japan that's sitting there at $144 already a $400 card on release? And the only way this ends up being a $400 card on release is if the community as a whole forces it. If we all just sit here and go, oh no, it's a $400 card, and we all pay $400, then that will actually turn it into a $400 card. But I showed you with Greninja, I showed you with Charizard, I showed you with Moonbreon. That shouldn't be the case. And if it is, it's because people have unintentionally, I hope unintentionally, pushed it up way too fast, way too quickly. Do not pay $400 for this Pikachu. For any advice from Roll Wassy, could be wrong, but I've laid it all out, so now it's over to you guys. Tell me what you think about this. Are you paying this much for the Pikachu? Let me know in the comment section. Go nuts! Be nice! And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at The Wassy. That's where we talk about Pokemon and a whole bunch of other card games. And please do consider checking out patreon.com/PTCG Radio, where you can support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all kinds of fun things. And get shoutouts on the channel like the lovely Derek, who's our newest patron and seems to be a very lovely person. So shout out to them for the support and the loveliness. But by far the most important thing as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.